A U.S. senator walks into a quiet Ohio diner expecting a peaceful lunch. But instead, he's denied service. Not because of a reservation issue, not because the kitchen's closed, but because of who he is. J.D. Vance is told to leave. And just when everyone expects outrage, drama, and headlines, he does something no one saw coming. He walks out with a smile. Then he pulls out his phone and goes live. What he says in the next 60 seconds explodes across the internet, drawing millions of views, thousands of comments, and starting a national conversation. Is this the face of grace under pressure, or a carefully calculated political play? Either way, what happened next changed the game. Stick around, because this isn't just a story, it's a moment that lit up America. Section 1. We don't serve politicians here. It all began on a quiet Wednesday afternoon in a small Ohio town. Senator J.D. Vance, dressed in a sharp navy suit and red tie, had just wrapped up a town hall meeting and decided to grab a bite to eat. He walked into a retro 1950s-style diner, neon lights glowing, jukebox humming low in the background. Locals whispered his name as he entered, but what happened next stunned the room. As he approached the counter and politely asked for a menu, the manager, a stern-faced woman in her 40s, looked him dead in the eye and said, "Sorry, Senator, we don't serve politicians here." For a moment, the entire diner went silent. A few jaws dropped. A couple of phones came out, quietly recording. J.D. Vance, momentarily confused, responded calmly, "Excuse me?" "You heard me," the manager said. "We're tired of political games. No offense, but we don't want your kind eating here." Section 2. The walkout that sparked a storm expanded. Instead of arguing or demanding to speak to a manager, J.D. Vance did something no one expected. He simply smiled. With a calm, almost graceful composure, Vance looked the manager in the eye, nodded, and said, "Well, I appreciate your honesty." Then, without another word, he turned and walked out of the diner. No security escort, no entourage, just him and the quiet sound of stunned customers whispering behind their menus. But what happened outside the diner was even more surprising. Word of the incident had spread quickly. Some patrons had already posted live videos and tweets. Within minutes, a small group of locals, curious bystanders, and a few press members who had attended his earlier town hall meeting had gathered just outside the building. They were expecting a political meltdown, a defensive rant, or maybe a call for a boycott. But J.D. Vance had something else in mind. He stood on the top step of the diner entrance, pulled out his phone, and hit the Go Live button on Instagram and X, formerly Twitter. Within seconds, thousands of followers tuned in. Looking directly into the camera, Vance began, "Hey everyone, just wanted to give you a quick update. I just walked into a diner here in Ohio, and I was denied service. Not for anything I said, not for how I acted, just for being a politician." He paused for a moment, his voice steady but thoughtful. "And honestly, I get it. People are frustrated. They're tired of promises, of partisanship, of all the noise coming from Washington. But instead of being angry, I'm inspired to listen more, talk less, and maybe start doing things differently." His tone wasn't bitter or defensive. It was reflective, even vulnerable. A politician acknowledging public frustration without spinning it into a blame game. Within minutes, the clip went viral. Hashtags like, diner drama, Vance goes viral, and no service senator began trending nationwide. Influencers reposted it. Late-night hosts joked about it. Cable news channels interrupted their programming to cover the diner denial. Commentators were split down the middle. Some praised Vance for his calm reaction and humility, calling it a masterclass in political grace. Others accused him of staging the event for clout or questioned the authenticity of his response. But whether loved or hated, one thing was clear. J.D. Vance had captured America's attention. The diner, meanwhile, was swarmed by reporters. Some customers gave interviews defending the manager, claiming she was standing up for regular people sick of political elites. Others said the refusal was unfair and made the town look bad. Back online, debates raged across comment sections. Was this diner just making a bold statement, or was it crossing a line by refusing service based on someone's profession? Even celebrities chimed in. A well-known actor tweeted, "Respect to J.D. Vance. That's how you handle rejection. With class." A popular comedian joked, "Imagine being too controversial for scrambled eggs." And through it all, Vance remained silent for the rest of the day, letting the viral moment speak for itself. But behind the scenes, he was already planning his next move. That single walkout, captured in shaky smartphone footage and streamed across the internet, had become more than a headline. It was a cultural flashpoint, an unscripted, raw moment that felt human in a time when most political appearances felt rehearsed. What J.D. Vance did next would turn that moment into a movement, one that no one, not even his critics, saw coming. And all of it started with a smile and a walkout that shocked the nation. Section 3. A movement is born, expanded. By the next morning, J.D. Vance's unexpected diner walkout had become national news, but it was what he did next that truly turned the incident into something larger. Rather than hold a press conference or issue a carefully crafted statement through a publicist, Vance made another bold move. He returned to the very heart of the story: small-town diners. But this time, he didn't go alone. He launched what he called the Listen Tour. No fancy campaign buses, no political fanfare, just J.D. Vance, a borrowed pickup truck, and a mission to visit everyday Americans where they live, work, and eat. His first stop? A neighboring diner just 20 miles down the road from where the walkout had happened. And unlike the first time, this one welcomed him with open arms. He sat at the counter, ordered a black coffee and eggs over easy, and started listening. Locals came and shared their frustrations, not just about politics, but about grocery prices, broken sidewalks, local schools, and forgotten promises. Vance didn't speak much. He just nodded, jotted down notes, and asked follow-up questions like, "What would you change if you were in my shoes?" Videos from these diner stops began flooding social media. In each clip, Vance appeared approachable, attentive, and stripped of the usual politician polish. He wasn't surrounded by aides or security. He wasn't dodging questions. He was just showing up and listening, something people hadn't seen in a long time from Washington. Soon, the #sign Diner Dialogues took off. It wasn't just J.D. Vance who was trending anymore. It was a conversation that had struck a nerve with millions of Americans who felt ignored by the powerful and misunderstood by the press. Other politicians tried to copy the move, but few could match the authenticity of Vance's approach. Back in Washington, commentators and strategists were baffled. One political analyst on a cable news panel said, "Whether you like him or not, J.D. Vance has managed to tap into something real. This isn't about left or right, it's about being heard." But not everyone was on board. Critics accused Vance of capitalizing on the incident, calling the tour a publicity stunt. One popular op-ed read, "It's easier to look like a man of the people when you've got a camera crew and a Senate salary." Others questioned why he wasn't focusing on legislation instead of breakfast meetings. Yet for many, the sincerity felt undeniable. A retired steelworker from Pennsylvania, who appeared in one of Vance's viral diner clips, said it best, "We don't care if it's political. We care that he's here. Nobody else comes around without asking for votes." Meanwhile, donations began pouring into small diners across the country, many from people who were inspired by the original incident. "Support your local diner" became an unofficial slogan of the moment. T-shirts were made. Memes exploded. Even late-night TV got in on the action. One host joked, "J.D. Vance is on a tour of diners? If he keeps this up, he's going to be more popular than pancakes." And as the tour gained steam, something deeper started to happen. regular people started organizing their own community roundtables in diners, coffee shops, and barbershops across America. J.D. Vance might have sparked the idea, but now the flame had spread far beyond him. What began as a personal moment of rejection had turned into something bigger, a national dialogue, led not by talking heads or influencers, but by regular Americans who felt like someone was finally willing to listen. The movement had started, and J.D. Vance, whether by design or by chance, had become its unlikely face. But even he had no idea how far this would go, or how quickly it would escalate from diner talks to a full-blown challenge to the status quo. Section 4. Backlash and Bold Moves. As J.D. Vance's Diner Dialogues movement swept across social media and small-town America, the political machine began to stir, and not everyone was clapping. Cable news debates erupted, headlines screamed across the nation. Populist theater or genuine outreach? Vance's diner tour, a brilliant PR stunt? Senator or social media star? Critics came from all sides. Some liberals painted Vance as a self-promoter exploiting outrage for clicks. Some conservatives claimed he was veering too far from the party line and pandering to non-voter sentiment. Even neutral commentators questioned the sustainability of his tour. After all, Vance was still a U.S. senator. Wasn't he supposed to be in D.C. legislating? But the backlash didn't stop there. A few activists staged counter-protests at diner stops, holding signs like "Pancakes Not Politics" and "You Can't Serve Justice at a Lunch Counter." One outspoken radio host sarcastically said, "If Vance wants to fix America with waffles and coffee, I've got a bridge to sell him." Even the original diner that denied him service wasn't spared. It became a battleground of online reviews, angry phone calls, and media attention it never wanted. The owner finally issued a weary statement. "We didn't ask to be the center of a national political firestorm. We just didn't want drama during lunch rush." But here's where things took a turn, and where J.D. Vance surprised everyone again. Instead of defending himself on talk shows or firing back at critics, he made a bold and unexpected announcement on his live stream just 2 weeks after the initial incident. "I'm challenging every politician in America, red or blue, to do what I'm doing. No speeches, no scripts, just sit down and talk with people. No cameras if you're scared of those, but if you really want to lead this country, start by listening to it." He even unveiled a public list of every diner he had visited, along with a map encouraging people to suggest new places for him or other politicians to visit. It wasn't a campaign. It was a challenge. The media had no idea what to do with it. Some called it revolutionary. Others called it reckless. But it got people talking, and that was exactly the point. To amplify the momentum, Vance published a short video compilation called Voices from the Counter, where average Americans told their stories. A single mother working 2 jobs, a retired coal miner with a broken pension, a college student buried in debt. The video racked up 20 million views in a week. And then, without warning, J.D. Vance went silent. No posts, no tweets, no press statements. For 3 days, the internet buzzed with questions. Was it over? Had he gone too far? Was he being silenced? Then on the 4th day, he posted a single message. "You don't always have to be the loudest voice. Sometimes the most powerful thing a leader can do is shut up and listen." That quote went viral, printed on shirts, mugs, even diner menus across the Midwest. In the face of backlash, J.D. Vance didn't just survive, he doubled down. He wasn't selling policies, he wasn't begging for votes, he was offering something else entirely: presence. In a time of noise, spin, and outrage, Vance had found a rare political currency, authentic silence backed by real action. But whether his moves would bring real change, or simply become another moment in America's endless content cycle, remained to be seen. One thing was certain: J.D. Vance had gone from rejected customer to cultural lightning rod. And as the nation leaned in, wondering what he'd do next, the diner doors of America were now open, and the conversation had only just begun. Section 5. The Turning Point. 3 weeks after being denied service at a quiet Ohio diner, J.D. Vance wasn't just a senator anymore. He had become a national conversation. But the biggest moment was still to come. It all started with a surprise invitation. A famous talk show host, who had once mocked Vance's diner tour, invited him to appear on air. Everyone expected fireworks, a heated debate, maybe even an ambush. But Vance accepted the invitation without hesitation. When he walked onto the set, wearing his usual rolled-up sleeves and a calm smile, the studio audience leaned forward. This was the moment they'd been waiting for. Instead of defensiveness or political sound bites, J.D. Vance told a story. He talked about how his grandparents raised him in Middletown, Ohio, how they worked long hours and taught him to respect people, not positions. He described how that diner rejection wasn't the first time he'd felt unwelcome, and it probably wouldn't be the last. Then he paused and said something that stunned the host and the viewers watching at home. America doesn't need another hero with a microphone. It needs more people who are willing to sit at a table, drink bad coffee, and just listen. Not perform, not argue, just listen. The host, known for sarcasm, went quiet for a moment, then said, "That's actually a really good point." Social media lit up. Listen. Like Vance began trending. Memes, reaction videos, and late-night parodies flooded the internet. But this time, most were positive. Even comedians were saying, "Okay, this guy might be onto something." But the real turning point didn't come on TV or Twitter. It came in the form of an open letter, handwritten by the owner of the original diner who had denied him service. The letter read, "Senator Vance, I never thought refusing to serve you would start something like this. I wanted peace, not politics in my diner. But after watching what you've done, how you've listened, not lashed out, I've realized I was wrong. My diner's doors are open to you now. And not just you, but anyone willing to talk, not shout." Vance shared the letter with a short message. "This is the America I believe in. Forgiveness, conversations, growth." The response was overwhelming. Politicians from both sides started replicating his counter-conversations. Mayors, governors, even former critics joined the wave. Some called it the Vance effect. News outlets that had dismissed him now invited him back for serious policy discussions. Even school civics teachers used his story as a case study in modern political discourse. But J.D. Vance wasn't interested in turning it into a brand or a campaign slogan. In fact, he rejected a major book deal offered by a top publisher who wanted him to write From Coffee to Congress, The Vance Way. Instead, he posted a selfie at another small-town cafe holding a mug with one simple word on it: respect. He captioned it, "No book deal, no merchandise, no campaign tour, just more coffee, more conversations, and more listening." That moment was the clearest message yet. This wasn't a stunt. It was a shift. The turning point wasn't just about J.D. Vance. It was about what he inspired. For once, a political story wasn't about power grabs or scandals. It was about humility, about finding common ground in the most unlikely places, about how a simple act, being denied a seat, could spark a nationwide movement to listen more, talk less, and lead with compassion. In a time of division and digital chaos, J.D. Vance's quiet revolution reminded America of something it had almost forgotten. Sometimes, the most powerful change doesn't begin in a courtroom, on a campaign trail, or behind a podium. Sometimes, it starts with a seat at a diner, and one man who chose to listen instead of fight.